Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 213, and this week we're going to follow up on last week's Red Pill that was dedicated to decoding the alt season. And if you watched last week's podcast, you are aware it's essentially played out exactly how we anticipated, with the entire week pushing up into this weekend, and now we have to prepare for the week ahead, which could very well be the opposite energy. But don't let that discourage you, because with what we're seeing with Bitcoin dominance right now, this is the exact setup we usually see right before we experience an alt season. So we have a lot to cover today, but before we get started, this will be the final announcement as mentioned in my last update for enrollment to Waters Above University, which will close down for good tomorrow, April 28th at midnight Pacific time. So if you'd like to join before we close down enrollment, this is the last chance to secure your spot by heading over to the link in the description of this video or in the pinned comment below. And when you get to this page, if you haven't already, definitely check out this university sample video we created, which includes a sample of our 9-week Accelerator program, as well as moments from our group coaching calls hosted by me every Thursday, and a sneak peek of our university community, which is also included in your university membership for a full year's access for this one-time payment. So as Patreon supporters, just a reminder, you receive the one and only discount available for our university, and you can find that exclusive promo code in the description or in the pinned comment below as well. And I'm really looking forward to you joining us on this new journey. And next Thursday, I'll be hosting a group coaching call for our university community on May 1st. So I'm really looking forward to catching some of you over there. Now let's get into today's Red Pill. And as always, make sure to get comfortable, make sure to get relaxed, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier in the day, or a glass of wine or beer if it's getting a little later out there in the Matrix. And also make sure to comment below this post here on Patreon to vote on the altcoins that you'd like me to cover in next week's Red Pill podcast. But before you leave a comment, just make sure to use the search function here on Patreon to check that I have not covered the project in at least 3 months. So if it's been at least 3 months since I reviewed that altcoin, or if perhaps I've never covered that altcoin before, as long as it has at least 1 year of chart history over on TradingView, you can go ahead and comment below with the name of the altcoin, and also please include the ticker symbol next to it as well. And whatever submissions get the most likes, those top 4 projects will be selected for next week's Red Pill. Now, let's get into this one. So we're back here where we started last week on the total 3 chart. It's the total crypto market cap chart, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And keep in mind, I have not moved this fractal at all. I have not adjusted it at all. And we zoom in and we see this white fractal overlaid. Let me go ahead and make it a little bit brighter. You're going to see that we've effectively been mimicking this perfectly. So we've not moved this or adjusted this fractal at all. And if you look where we were trading last Sunday, which was right over here, we've effectively pushed up perfectly into this pivot point on April 26th. So if you watched last week's Red Pill, you anticipated this exact move up to this exact date. And here we are, it is April 27th. You're starting to see that effectively from today down to around May 8th, May 9th, we could actually experience our next pivot point to the downside before continuation higher. Now, I have to admit, and I always say this, I do not expect this fractal to continue to keep working at this level of accuracy forever, but so far, so good. And since today is the new moon, so happy new moon, wolves, and Bitcoin regarding new moons tends to correct immediately after the new moon. This means that I'm expecting the next week ahead to be an overall correction. So less than 5 minutes in today's Red Pill. You know all my thoughts, but I'm going to break it down step by step, share all the reasons why, and continue to just track this as closely as possible, because we are in those, and I don't like saying this without having some real backup, but we're kind of in those final moments. And what I mean by that is as we see Bitcoin dominance push higher, we're seeing the altcoins pop up from an incredibly oversold market correction into earlier this month. We saw peak extreme fear. I mean, this is like the exact environment where we get ready for the final corrective phase, bottoming phase to be complete. So that's what we're going to cover right now. So we usually get these corrections after the new moons. Let me go ahead and pull up the moon phases so you could all see what's going down. Like we saw last month, blue dot for the new moon, we push down. Over here, same energy. Over here, not as clean, but we're actually looking at total 3 right now. So we can see new moon correction, new moon correction, new moon. We started correcting through it. Same here, same here, same here, same here, same here. There's plenty of evidence, right? So I don't need to waste anyone's time with that. But if you'd want, go ahead, add this indicator, just moon phases, to your TradingView, and it's free. You could go ahead and play around with it, see for yourself. So here we are. We have a very important week ahead, and I do believe it will be a correction across the board. And consider it should start anytime during this upcoming 18th week of the year. So we'll be talking about April 28th through May 5th, which pushes us through the next quarter moon on May 4th. That's also the day of the next Red Pill podcast. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out between market open tomorrow and next Sunday. Red Pill 214. Is that right? Yeah. But for now, this idea of a correction for the overall crypto market happening during these specific dates should not be news to you here, since I've been putting emphasis on that analysis for the past couple weeks leading up to the end of this month. And for those that are new here, just a quick recap of the significant dates. We have, of course, April 29th, this upcoming Tuesday. It's the 119th day of the year, the mirror of the 911 code, and this is 47 days after the total lunar eclipse on March 14th that started our lunar cycle. I just make sure my levels are good to go. And then it will also be 47 days before the President Trump's birthday, 47th president of the US, of the good old apple pie. And as we know, this 47 code has been very significant, not only because Trump is the 47th president, but also the entire market crashed into April 7th, the 4/7 Gregorian date. Just quickly pull that up. And this is big. The number 47 that we're talking about, it is the 15th prime number, and we have on the 15th week of the year starting on April 7th. How perfectly synchronized for a market crash, right? Now, if we take from the days of April 7th through the 29th, the date in the future that I discovered with this decoding system, you'll see that they're 23 days apart, and esoterically 23 becomes 2 3s. That's 33. And keep this in mind because both gold and silver just finished off the week with the 33 code. Let me just quickly show you. We have, oh, well, there we go. We're back open again. So we have silver closed off the week at $33 an ounce, and gold closed off the week at $3,300 an ounce. It's like magic, ain't it? And for those who are unaware, 33 is the master number of transmutation, effectively changing from one form to another form in alchemy. It's a very powerful number in numerology, and for anybody out there that studies life path, etc., you know its significance. But coming back to the code, we've been having this number 33 happen pretty much all year as well, and I'll cover that a little bit later. But we have from the following day of April 30th over to April 7th, it will be 3 weeks and 3 days apart. So we have another 33 code, and I just showed you how that's showing up in the prices of these precious metals. And those precious metals are symbolic of the end of the Piscean age as we move into what I'm calling the Aquarian economy. Talk about that in another decode. But what's even more crazy about this following date of May 1st is that it's tied to January 29th, which is Chinese New Year of this year. And you're going to see that this will be the start of the year of the snake, and we have them separated by 3 months and 3 days. Another powerful 33 connection, and it's landing on the second key date that I've been telling you all about, which is May 1st, May Day, Bavarian Illuminati Day. It's also synchronized with Israel's Independence Day on their Hebrew calendar. And remember earlier I mentioned the code hidden within that powerful number of 47, because 47 is the 15th prime number. So we have this number 15, and we're talking about May 1st, the Gregorian 1-5 date written internationally. And it also has a 15 standard date numerology, and the mirror being 51. It's a 51 double digit date numerology. And remember how on the start of the 15th week of the year, April 7th, the entire market crashed into that date. And since decoding this date further, I've actually realized there's so many Saturn connections here too, which of course are incredibly important when you're talking about anything that has to do with Israel or the Hebrew calendar, as their entire system is Saturnian. So just to point out a couple of those connections, we have these two dates are 93 days apart, and Saturn in Gematria gives you 93. And then you have your 21 code. You're going to see that in a couple ciphers. This ties back to Satoshi. Remember, Bitcoin has 21 million coins in supply. I teach this thoroughly in my crypto decoding blueprint, which is actually included inside of my decoding mastermind course for free over at watersabove.com if you want to learn more how to decode these markets. So Chinese New Year this year, the year of the snake, had a 21 date numerology, and May Day is the 121st day of the year, the mirrored palindrome. And I already showed you a couple of those 33 connections like over here, but don't forget about April 7th into May 1st, because if you don't include the end date, it will be 3 weeks and 3 days. But if you were to include the end date, you have this 25 code, which I have talked about before, because this number 25 synchronizes with our year, the Gregorian 25 year, and also the Hebrew year, 5,785, adding up to 25. And then in the recent decode that I shared with you all, I broke down the dates of May 5th through May 7th that are also on my radar, since we've had not only an event that happened on February 2nd, the 2-2 date into the following day of February 3rd, but February 2nd was the 33rd day of the year. Let me quickly show you all of this so you can see I'm telling you the truth. So we have the 2-2, 22 on the 33rd day of the year, and then we have the 3-3 event on March 3rd, major market event. And then we had 33 days after March 3rd, the 33 date on April 4th. We have another record-breaking move in the stock market right after Liberation Day on April 2nd. So we had a 2-2 event, we had a 3-3 event, we had a 4-4 event, and why not a 5-5 event, right? So we do have to consider this, right? Because we're talking about 55. Esoterically, 55 becomes 2 5s, just like I showed you a little bit earlier. So we have 55 esoterically becomes 2 5s, becomes 25. And that's our key number for our year that we just told you about. And the key pattern for all of this, though, has been the number 33. So technically, 33 days after Liberation Day, which was on April 2nd, that would be the connection to May 5th. So it's a very powerful connection here because this event already has come and gone. It's shaken up the markets. We saw what it did on the day of April 4th, the 4-4 crash, and then it crashed through into Monday, April 7th. Also, apologies, in my last YouTube video, I referenced April 7th as Liberation Day. That was just a slip. You guys know this is a lot of information, a lot of dates. It's very easy to confuse that stuff, especially for me who doesn't watch the news, doesn't really care too much about these exoteric events. I'm just decoding them to provide you with the esoteric, right? But getting back to this, we have this 33 days after Liberation Day landing on May 5th. I think that's very powerful. 5-5 double-digit date numerology. We have the 55 in the Gregorian, and then we have Satoshi Nakamoto giving you the 55. We know we just had Satoshi Nakamoto's 50th birthday, really pretty much perfectly in the week of Liberation Day and right leading to the 4-7 crash. So it's just crazy, right? Anyways, I do think that this alone is significant. So save this. The significant dates we're working with are April 29th, May 1st, and May 5th. Write those three down. That's your holy trinity moving forward. So this is pretty much perfectly where the pivot happens on the fractals that I've been showing you on the total 3 chart, as well as multiple Bitcoin charts. And if you remember the Mercury retro shade and post Venus retrograde analysis that I shared a couple weeks ago in a red pill, it pointed to around 2 weeks after we pushed through the Mercury shadow phase. So let me just quickly show you. That was right here. After about 2 weeks post shadow period, we typically have a micro bottom before pushing higher. And with the Mercury shadow period ending around April 21st, this means 2 weeks after is May 5th, perfectly on that date we were just decoding. So now that we've recapped all the dates and the energy that I'm expecting for these markets into the week ahead, let's address something that many have reached out to me about, and that's the SEC's approval of an XRP ETF. So we did label this podcast correctly today. We are talking about this. And now I can't confirm if this document was released today. I believe it hasn't been. It was potentially released on April 15th, according to the sources that I've looked into. And that's the filing date, April 15th. But anyways, that doesn't matter. It is hitting X today hard. Everyone on Twitter's talking about it. It's getting a lot of prana, and we are probably seeing that weekend mini pump in XRP because of this exoteric information spreading across all the big crypto X accounts. And you can see over here that it says on April 30th, 2025, blah, 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 blah. So this will be the launch. So that's what matters most, the date of the XRP ETF launch, April 30th. Now, this is not a spot ETF like the Bitcoin ETF that came out back at the beginning of last year. Instead, this is a futures ETF. So this type of ETF doesn't actually cause any buying pressure on the XRP supply, but it will cause fluctuations in the XRP spot price because of speculation that traders make based on moves that are leading up to the launch, and then what it's likely to do after the official launch. And what do I mean by that? Well, that's why I wanted to dedicate today's red pill to this, because I knew it would hit our community and you would all be wondering my thoughts. So it was kind of perfect timing for this information to come out before I started working on today's red pill. And I haven't been putting as much emphasis on XRP lately just because it's been trading sideways. So naturally, this is the perfect time to dedicate an red pill to putting a little bit more emphasis on the XRP price as we're just a couple days out from this big exoteric event. So what I said a moment ago is regarding the speculation that this will create fluctuations and volatility in the XRP price due to the launch of this futures ETF, even though the ETF itself will not shock the supply. And then I also finished that sentence off with saying what it's likely to do after the official launch. So what I mean by that is just by going back to the Bitcoin chart, where we have right over here on January 11th, we have on a new moon, the launch of the first ever crypto ETF, the first ever Bitcoin ETF launched on January 11th. And then we can see that over the following 12 days, we had a 20% correction. But keep in mind, 12 days around a 20% correction. Then we have Ethereum's ETF that launched on July 23rd, 2024. So let me go show you what this was. So we're right here. Literally, guys, look at where it was trading into the ETF launch. I'm not making this up. So then We took about 13 trading days and it had a 40% correction, but you notice that it was 12 days for Bitcoin, it was 13 days for ETH, very, very close. And it was day 13 that it was really it's the last day that it's the worst kind of vibe, even though we did get a little chop afterwards. And we'll cover that later. But for now, if we were to follow a similar trend, we need to go into the XRP chart and show you what would be the timing of this. So we have from the 30th of the month, sorry, I was going to say the end of the month, and then we have 12 days being May 12th, and then we have 13 days naturally being May 13th, and that aligns perfectly with the upcoming full moon. Perfectly. Okay? So now I really hope you're all aware that I'm not trying to spread any FUD or say that with certainty that this XRP ETF launch will go exactly like the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF launch went. But the whole buy the rumor, sell the news thing is a popular saying for a reason. And we already watched this happen with the number 1 and number 2 crypto by market cap. So it shouldn't shock us if it was to happen to the number 3 crypto as well. Now, let's get into these charts, starting with the XRP chart to review the setup into this ProShares XRP futures ETF launch, which is supposedly on April 30th in a couple days. Now, isn't this interesting how April 30th is just the day after my key date of April 29th that I've been talking about all month? Pretty interesting, right? Let me expand this chart. Well, here we have a very experimental XRP chart that I've been personally enjoying working with lately, and the fractal we have overlaid in the green in the background is from the 2017 cycle. It's over here from May of 2017 through the beginning of January 2018, when XRP went from under 10 cents all the way up to over $3 during that cycle's alt season. And if we were to measure from this first peak, let me turn off the moons. If we were to measure from this first peak over here around May 17th, I believe, let me zoom in. All right. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to where we are now. That makes a lot more sense. I want to actually measure from here, from December 3rd over to about where we are today, 145 days, right? So keep that in mind. I'm measuring from over here and not over here for a reason, because this is like a Wyckoff up thrust, which it's not really a solid thing to consider. It's more of like a upside bull trap, and it kind of makes the chart a little wonky. Obviously you would see bearish divergences forming, etc., etc. But what I am caring about is this massive straight line breakout and where it's stalled out, and still kind of effectively the true top. Now, from this date of the 3rd of December over to where we are today, I just showed you is 145 days. And now when we go back to May, we're going to do the same thing and kind of track where we are in this fractal. So we have from May 17th, and we're going over 145 days, and that's landing us into right there on October 9th. And this could very well be where we're at now in this fractal if I was to kind of show you. It's right around here. That could very well be where we're in our fractal. If you look at the rise up in the XRP price, same thing we've been seeing lately, this rise up in the XRP price. And now we could be into this like micro distribution. And if we were to measure from here over to the final push to the lows, you would see that's between 160 days to 170 days. And then from there, we had just a little chop before a straight line breakout. So we want to keep 160 to 170 days in mind, measuring from the same spot. And that's going to show you the time frame of May 11th through May 21st. So exactly around the May full moon. And remember earlier I mentioned that Bitcoin took about 12 days to correct after the launch of the ETF, and Ethereum took 13. Well, that's right there into the same time frame that we just showed you May 12th to May 13th. So this aligns perfectly as well regarding how this is likely to play out. Now, when it comes to the levels to expect, because I'm sure you guys care about that too, what prices will it be? It's what makes this channel very unique. The fact that we're not only timing the market to the dates, trying to figure out where the prices will be at the same time. Well, if I was to kind of consider only this fractal, which I don't love to do, but thus far it's been showing a lot of the energetic pivot points. I mean, you could even see if we were to look from the rise down to it's starting to break down, the major move here with the breakdown, the rise up just like it did here, and then the way it comes right back down into the same exact lows. This big, massive move up that came out of nowhere, followed by the same chop and then correction into the end of this month or last month, and the recovery from the lows in early April into where we are now. I mean, it's energetically, it's mimicking really well. Price wise, it's impossible for it to. It was 10 cents or so. I mean, how much was it back then? Was it 30 cents? Yeah, it was 20 cents. It's 10 times higher now in price, so it can't be identical. Needless to say, though, the way that we're moving up into this exoteric event also seems like it's mapping out perfectly. And looking at things purely from a fractal perspective, it shows me that we need to keep $1.80 in mind for XRP, especially depending on what happens with Bitcoin. And if we were to measure from our local high down to $1.80 level, that puts you at around a 20% correction. And that's what Bitcoin did when it launched the ETF for the first time. So that's not weird, right, guys? The fact that we had, if Bitcoin can correct 20 cents or 20% after the launch of an ETF, of course XRP can. And XRP has even more volatility, right? So I want you to consider that. What can happen between now and April 30th, the day of the launch, right? There could be a lot that could happen between now and then. So if Bitcoin were to hold up from right now into April 29th or 30th, sideways around like 93 to 94K, then this type of environment that Bitcoin's creating can actually push up the XRP price, just because of the way Bitcoin dominance works, right? You'd only need about like 0.25% move down in Bitcoin dominance while Bitcoin's trading sideways to see XRP move up 10 cents. So just keep that in mind. Until I see significant volume get injected into this market, I'm not really too concerned what's happening in the short-term moves until we get confirmations, but we could have a lot that happens between now and April 30th, of course, especially with that being the monthly close and everything trading together at the same time: precious metals, Forex, traditional markets, and crypto. So we could even have a move like back here happen on the 29th into the 30th with regards to March 2nd and March 3rd. I don't think it'll be the same percentage move, but we could have like that big spike into the launch followed by the next day a absolute just complete breakdown and rejection and continue lower. So let's get into what I think the precise move would be and just kind of be open-minded to this. So it could be like a move up to 240, maybe 260 on a wick into the day of launch, and then the following day we could be pushed right back down to 220 by May 1st, even like lower than where we're trading now. And then we could continue to push down until around May 8th through May 14th, May 15th, around the time frame of the full moon. And that would be the push potentially even lower. Call it 180, 190. Still holding structure, still looking very good. And so far, XRP only has a couple daily candles closing below $2. It's not nearly as important right now as it is just holding the macro structure. So it would be great to see XRP hold all the way until the monthly close, but this is what it is, guys. The timing of this was very, I think on purpose, for sure. And I think it's my April 29th gem that I figured out by the code with the 47. I think that's really what's running this market, but that's my opinion. Of course, I believe gematria, numerology, and astrology run the market. You're entitled to your own opinion, but I'm sure you made it here because you see what I'm seeing. So to round this all out, The push up into potentially 260 on a wick, followed by a big rejection into the 1st of May, May Day, coming back to around 2 and pushing even slightly lower, maybe around $1.80, in alignment with everything that I shared with you a little bit earlier, and that would be around the May full moon. Now, unless they were to throw us a curveball, this would be what I'm personally expecting. And for those that are wondering, well, what's the curveball? Well, that would be a true breakout with bullish continuation from an exoteric event, which is very, very rare. I mean, we all know what happened around Trump's inauguration, right? Pretty much the entire crypto market topped out around that date, including XRP. And of course, this curveball would be great for XRP holders, as your portfolios would look amazing. But until we start seeing more macro candle closures above 260, then I'm not getting excited just yet. I want to see macro candle closes above 260 with volume confirmation. And I'm still expecting Bitcoin dominance to actually push higher into the month of May and through into the month of June. And right now we're looking pretty damn good. So I do believe we'll get to 65% and actually even 66% by June. And once we get above that level of 65%, that would be above the top of the golden pocket, above the 786 fib here in this macro chart over here. I think we can move from 65% to 68% rapidly. And that's about where I'd anticipate it to slow down and become exhausted. Maybe we get that like blow off top to 70% that we've seen in the past cycles. We went over this last week. Let me show you. So I'm talking about here and here. Maybe, yeah, we get that blow off to above 68 into 70, but essentially once it pushes through 68%, I'd get ready for the alt season and the actual breakout with bullish continuation for not only XRP, but for the entire altcoin market. And the fractal that we started with today's analysis on XRP, get to it. It is showing you that this has a straight line breakout at the end of June into early July. And keep in mind that fractal that we pulled from over here, right over there, from this move over here to this move, it was about 3 weeks. And if we were to go back to Bitcoin dominance in December 7th, let me quickly show you. So that's Bitcoin dominance on December 7th, and that's around where XRP topped out. So this crashed about 50% in almost 40 days. Yeah, this crashed 50% in just a little under 40 days. And in our last alt season, and you see the level that it went to, right? 71%. Our last alt season, if we look at from when it topped, it took a little bit longer, and that's obviously totally fine because we're looking at completely different cycles, but it took about 135 days. And interestingly enough, if we were to assume Bitcoin dominance were to top out in June, which is kind of what I'm seeing, and we went over 135 days, that would put us into October, which is past the second lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle. Although I do believe there's a couple of analysts out there that believe we'll top in October. Now, that's not my opinion. That's what they think. I believe this is a little too far out because we have the lunar cycle that we're in and the second lunar eclipse of that lunar cycle on September 7th. It's likely to cause more market chaos later this year. And remember, the year of the snake, where back in 1929, right before the Great Depression, that was where the market topped out too, at the very beginning of September. So yeah, it's very strange to imagine that we'll have a typical clean 4-year cycle for Bitcoin and the altcoins, which would mean a push higher into November, December for a Bitcoin top. That's kind of tough for me to entertain, especially with the way last cycle went, where we actually saw most altcoins topping in April, May. We could have a completely different essence this time around, where I believe it will be happening June, July, September, or sorry, July, August, September. That's my opinion though. So from the beginning though of June to the September 7th eclipse is just around 100 days. And that to me is very solid amount of time to entertain. It's not anything out of the ordinary, right? So if we were to take a look at when Bitcoin dominance topped in January 3rd, over 100 days, you can see this is where it started to really break down, but it was around the middle of April. This is really important to know because in the middle of April into May of 2021, Ethereum was in price discovery, Solana was already far into price discovery, and even XRP was dealing with the beginning of the SEC case, but it was up a 10x from this crash all the way up to the middle of April. You see the dates? So, like, this was going on during a lawsuit, fucking delistings, this, that, and the third. But 100 days later, we get this move. So I do think that we can see from extreme lows where we're in bearish energy, like we're seeing with a lot of altcoins right now, over the next 100 days, from even June. Note, we're at the end of April right now, so we still have some time. This is good news. I still think those 100 days from the beginning of June over to, we were talking about the beginning of September, that gives us plenty of time to see crazy things happen in the crypto market. Why? Because we saw it happen before, not only in those two cycles, but even in the cycle that came before that for Bitcoin. And Dogecoin was in that cycle, and XRP was kind of launching in that cycle. But anyways, let's get back to this. This actually gives us a very solid window to work with regarding an upcoming alt season, and I'll of course continue to keep you all updated every step of the way. But for now, you know my key level for XRP. Let me just zoom in on the daily chart so I could finish off this analysis. So you know my key upside level is 260. That's what I want to see for bullish continuation. And in the short term, leading into the May full moon around May 12th, I believe we'll have another correction back to the $2 territory. That's triggered by a potential Bitcoin sell-off post new moon, which by the way, the new moon is today. And that means it could kick in at any moment, starting from today when markets open tomorrow, or even my key date of the 29th into the 30th, which a lot of eyes will be on crypto on that day of April 30th because of the launch of this ETF for XRP. So we have a lot of information, but I believe I've been crystal clear on everything you need to know, from the specific dates, the energy, the direction, etc. So now let's get into the Bitcoin chart, check in with our weekly close and also the upcoming monthly close for April. So we're on Bitcoin. Wow, we have popped all the way back up to the golden pocket. I don't like to see this. This is not a healthy move in my opinion. Just being honest, this is like how bull traps that lead to bear markets go. So I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm just saying the fact that we haven't had a new all-time high in Ethereum, we haven't really seen pure price discovery for XRP. Even Solana didn't really enter price discovery, and the fact that Bitcoin dominance is so high, and also Bitcoin's in price discovery, that to me is giving me enough ingredients to say that for this recipe, I don't think that this is the bull trap that sends us into a dead cat bounce situation. I do think maybe a lot of analysts could be entertaining that right now. I wouldn't know because I'm not watching any other analysts, but you guys let me know what your thoughts are. It's just this move coming up to this technical level that quickly is not healthy, right? Anyways, I do anticipate the correction coming back at least into backtesting some of this chop that we were struggling with all throughout the end of February through the recent breakout. Puts us around 85, 86, 87K. And that would also maintain, holding this trend line. Although this is not like the holy grail trend line. There's a couple other really good trend lines that I have as well. What else? Remember, there's one more chart. It's really good. It's not the most important, but it's effectively this, if I had to show you. So we have from like this chop up at the like kind of really most important part of the entire crypto cycle, because if you look at any altcoin back in October 2023, this launch that we had up into around like March, April 2024, many altcoins went up 1,000%. So this was a really pivotal moment. And you could see we have the ETF launch. We corrected down to this trend line. We had the next surge up into retesting prior all-time highs. 8 months of back testing the prior all-time high from 2021 came back to this major trend line. We had a couple swipes below it, but overall held it really nicely. And then we've since corrected back to it perfectly too. So we're talking about a trend line that's been in place since the end of October of 2023. And, with that being said, if we were to align around the May 8th, May 5th time frame all the way up to the full moon, it's about 80K Bitcoin. And for me, that's the perfect place for Bitcoin to come back to. So kind of something like this. And then I do think that by June, around the first week of June, we should be hitting 100K again. Kind of something like that. And I can't confirm that that would be where it like ends. It could go something like this, where like in that time frame we back test this rejection here, and then we might only get up to like, sorry guys, something like this, 120. And then Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin does something like this in July, and it goes like this. And there's your alt season. It's like literally just about 40 to, yeah, about 50 days. And even like if you look at it stalling out right here again, if I didn't make it as dramatic and it went something like this, that's something I could entertain. Really choppy, but a grind, but a rise in July into August. Or during this time, we have Bitcoin dominance starting to top out, like in this move right there. From yeah, that to me looks clean. That to me looks very clean. And then I think effectively breaking down below this. And as for the ultimate correction, it might only be 40%. Like literally. I know some people are thinking like Bitcoin's cycle is just going to continue to have these 70% corrections, but I don't know about that, guys. Like why? Why does it have to do that? Now, this is insanely experimental, but I'm just showing you like why does it have to go? If we just spend 8 months back testing these prior two peaks on a macro, that could be really how the end of the cycle goes, where Bitcoin only chops into this area. And that's your bear market. That's how messed up it would be. And a lot of people would say, well, why? Why can't we go full 80%, 70%, this, that? No. Altcoins for sure. But this right here, this 55% correction, we haven't done anything even close to that since. We've had a 30% correction here. We've just had another 30% correction here. We just moved into a lunar cycle like we did over here, and we've only had a 30% correction so far. So what would invalidate this, of course, is if Bitcoin were to fully mimic it, it would go down to here. 48K Bitcoin like now, like soon, next month. That would invalidate this and mimic more of this. But if you look at the timing of all of this, how from here, from peak over to where we are, yeah, we're already mostly through it. And I've put this fractal on a bunch of times. So you see where our lows would come in on this one? Right around May 6th, May 8th, and then it rises up. and then it peaks out literally at the same exact time that I have this marker over here, and it corrects at the same time too. That's kind of what I'm feeling. And yeah, it might not be this move right here that we got, might be the bear market, and we don't do this. I'm just sharing a theory, not because I'm a Bitcoin bull or whatever. It's just I'm starting to think that Bitcoin is done with these really, really arduous, crazy corrections. And I think we'll have the shortest lunar cycle in Bitcoin's history this time around. So it'll be complete by August, 1 year after. So yeah, it would be really interesting to see something like this. Kind of like that. And then the recovery from this structure. Yeah, sure. We get a 56% bear market, and that's it. And then every altcoin loses like 95% of its value. Should I just leave this? I'll just leave it. Fuck it, whatever. It's not that big, not that important. Kind of my thoughts though. This would be a little bit more on the extreme side. And I would like to see a correction about this deep. It would backtest the 80K level. It's a nice psychological level at this time. It's deep into price discovery. So it's not like we've, yeah, I mean, the one thing to mention is the fact that we haven't dug back into this zone. But maybe we don't need to because we've already spent all that time trading in it last year. So why do we need to come back into it? We don't. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. But I want to get like to more traditional technical analysis. Let's get to the weekly. I actually forgot how we got here with this idea, but that's okay. That's what red pills are for. Oh man, yeah, we are back above that 8. We've back tested the 55 perfectly. Last time we did this, we popped back above the 8 momentarily, but then we did come right back down. So you see the timing in between barely touching the 55 simple moving average and then coming back down. I'm sorry, I didn't. 28 days. So yeah, that puts us into May 5th. It's like everything is just pointing to the beginning of May for some sort of correction. It doesn't have to go deeper. It doesn't even have to be 80K. It could be 84, 85, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, that correction down. And then I think we're just going to rally on up from there, pretty much. Maybe have some chop like this in July where it's just a grind. But damn, we got all the way back up pretty fast. So on the weekly perspective, we're looking really good on the 8 and 55 because we've yet to have a wolf cross to the downside, and we're avoiding the wolf cross right now by having the 8 start to slope flat, and then eventually it'll push up by next week or by this weekly close. All right, we're looking at the EMAs. We have the 13 above the 21 above the 34. That's all bullish. We're back above all the key moving averages, and this will be the first weekly close that we've had since the correction at the end of February that has pushed us back back above all the major moving averages. It's a little too quick, but whatever. That's Bitcoin for you, right? Bitcoin likes to do this. It likes to get you super scared, shaken out, and then just flips to the upside. And then once everyone FOMOs back in here, it likes to go down another time and then just rinse repeat until we have a major energetic shift, which I suspect the next energetic shift will be pushing us closer to the September lunar eclipse, which will, in my opinion, be a bull trap. But this move that we're seeing right now, it's getting us back above all the key moving averages. That's really nice to see. Let's look at the monthly. Oh my God. Yeah, the monthly is just beautiful. A big, this would be a really nice close, but still not showing any signs of like continuation. Although, yeah, you just zoom out onto any 2, 3 month, 4 month candle and you're going to get the story. But we're at resistance right now on the bi-monthly. So yeah, this kind of sucks with the timing of the fact that we could be correcting right there into oh man, you know it'd be so cool. I'm really theorizing right now, but what would be so cool is like if Bitcoin did something like this. You get the drawing tool. Like, if it's something like that. Like if it just sunk to like 90 and then into the monthly close just like gets to 96 and then comes down. Like something like that would be so fucked up. Like this move right here, you see? Where like we just pop up really quick and then we come down for like a lower. Just to keep that bi-monthly looking good. All right, guys, I don't want to take up too much time with this, but I think you guys have the idea of the energetics. We don't need to get so specific right now, but we've popped up into a key level of above the zero point 0.5 fib. It's thin air between this 382 and this 618. I don't love that. I think that's to be back tested. And it would be healthy for it to be back tested too. And if it were to happen, Bitcoin dominance will likely push higher and that will push down the altcoins. So we're looking at ETH. ETH is like just struggling to recover right now. Really not a whole lot of an update here. Even with Bitcoin pushing back up to 94, it almost feels like Bitcoin has recovered a higher percentage than Ethereum has lately. It's probably not true, but it feels like, yeah, dude, barely. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, consider the fact that we're now still with this bearish posture on the EMAs, but they're just starting to flip, so that's a really good sign. Although I do think we'll have a retest of 1580 on ETH if we do see Bitcoin correct. As for the weekly close, we're looking decent, but yeah, we're just so far away from showing any signs of reversal or confirmation of a bottom. So yeah, there's just nothing to say there, to be completely honest. Did we get a bi-weekly? Yeah, we do get a bi-weekly today. And even this isn't engulfing the last candle. So again, not the brightest analysis for today here. We've had all of our major EMAs cross bearish. That's obviously very bad. I'm not very bullish on ETH. I haven't been for some time now. Yeah, I think I'm just more XRP holder at this point when it comes to my previous thesis on Ethereum. And maybe there's other positions to round things out, but I would rather at this time just put more money into XRP than Ethereum. Let me move on, skip through this. Let's get to just a quick recap on Bitcoin with the M2 global liquidity. You guys like when I do that? All right. So yeah, we can see that even as it's been in more of like a bottoming phase, we've pushed pretty high, but now we're kind of in the point where if it wasn't the weekend, I think this would have shown itself more obviously. Into the 27th, which is today, we are actually coming down, and then we have it bottoming through May 1st, and then also still kind of dealing with it till May 6th through May 8th. So we'll have to see. And obviously, any offset that you select will be theoretical and it will be experimental. So this offset is set by 108 days. Some people do 105, some people do 70. The 70 one is pretty interesting because it does look like now that's starting to look a lot more accurate, but only as of right now, right? And yeah, like even that, it's not the greatest, most accurate way of perceiving markets. So we're just sort of using this as a tertiary form of analysis. But I do really like the fact that we have a couple of these. Sorry, we have this pivot point over here on the 5th aligned with the prior lunar cycle, which I was sort of showing you a little bit earlier over here. And then the push up actually mimics M2 perfectly. So I don't know if I'll keep following this week by week by week, but you guys see here, we have this M2 thing following the fractal, and then it comes back down into July, and then it pushes up even a little bit higher into August. And now as of August, it seems to be stalling out a little bit. And that would make a lot of sense too for the push up into potentially like 120, 125K Bitcoin, something like that. So let's move on. We've already covered XRP thoroughly, so we're going to be going over to Nexo. I don't know if I've ever looked at this chart. Is this the coin that is attached to the Nexo exchange? Is that the exchange that also did like kind of like a Celsius BlockFi sort of thing? Guys, let me know. This goes back to 2018. Shit, this is a lot of chart history, okay? So many good things to say about this already. So one of the things you guys know I love to do is I like looking back at where a chart was during the C19 crash, because that was a crazy event that happened on our world stage, and I want to see the resilience of an altcoin. So the fact that it was trading at around this basing level of 10 cents all the way up to today, we're 1,000% higher effectively. Isn't that a good sign that you could have hodled this and it's not the worst hodl project? Now, of course, looking back at the last all-time high to where we are today, 70% down, but still even that is better than what we've seen to comparatively to some other altcoins. So a couple of good signs here. I'm going to go ahead and pull a fib from this swing high down to this swing low, and I'm going to double click there and turn this setting on. And have we hit the golden pocket? Not yet. So we've been getting a little bit of resistance here, which that's one sign of weakness already because of that. You see, we had the move up into the buying climax, came back to this trend line, a little bit of trading on top, and then one more move up with a lower high, and then yet another attempt high with a rejection, followed by the real move into the bear market. This right here, you see the way that once we confirmed we couldn't hold $1.45, that's when it got real bad and it just cascaded to the downside. Well, since our recovery into this current bull run, we've been getting rejected at that level. So that's not nice to see. But the one thing that is good to see about it is if we are to break above it, I believe we'll go straight to the 888 fib. So that'd be about $3. Now let's map up one other important layer to the downside, which is right around here at 93 cents, 95, 96 cents. And you can see kind of the same story. Rejections, rejection, popped above it, support, support. So we have a massive trading range for this between like 96 cents and around $1.40. And we've been dealing with that trading range since all of last year, like 1 calendar year plus. Let me see if there's a couple other macro trend lines that, because I'm seeing some. Oh yeah, dude. Wow. That's very rare, by the way. It's very rare for this support to be held for, what is this, probably two to 3 years. Yeah. And then break above it, come right back to it. And then since we've just started breaking below it, which that's another second sign of weakness, because when this just happened to Ethereum recently, and Ethereum just fucking drowned. So let me show you what I'm talking about with ETH. It was right here. You see ETH from June all the way till here. So 3 years. And then once it broke through that trend line, it's been the biggest correction we've had since the bear market for ETH. So I don't like to see that on Nexo. And that's a second red flag for me with what we're seeing right now. But again, overall alt season, we do have all this liquidity up to about $3 to $4. I don't know if this will push into price discovery. And also this isn't down enough for me to make it a venture capital position. So I'll personally sit this one out. But if you were somebody who's still holding this shit from the last cycle, congratulations. You're already looking at alt season numbers. And if you bought it anywhere near like under the 70-cent level, things are looking okay. And yeah, hold it until we push back up into new all-time highs. Or not new all-time highs, but new yearly highs. Again, very difficult for me to entertain new all-time highs with some of these speculative altcoins right now, because we need to have a major breakdown, collapse in Bitcoin dominance. And I feel that when I'm seeing things like XRP and XLM, HBAR, like they're coming back into higher levels and looking much more sophisticated than they did the last cycle, compared to stuff like this that just had an amazing alt season in 2020 into 2021. I think there's been a shift where like here being in that stuff was the good move, but this time around being in things like XRP is the better move. Just to summarize the concept. Of course, if you're trading this stuff up and down, have fun. You can make a lot of money doing that, but you have to time that. So with where we're at with Nexo, I would just worry that the fact that we broke below this significant trend line that's been in place since the genesis of this chart, plus we have yet to concretely break higher than the 0.5 fib level. And also we're continuously back testing a support, which could break. All of that tells me that this 84-cent level is important. If you start closing dailies below this 84-cent level, I think it's coming straight back to 52. And I would not buy that personally, because we're just too late in the cycle for me to personally add any new positions, but not the worst chart. It's good if you were holding it back in the day. Not the craziest ROI right now, but maybe a little bit safer in general. Cool. It's good to see a chart that I haven't looked at ever in a red pill. All right, now we're looking at Fetch AI, which I don't remember the last time I covered, but I do remember that it had some sort of what was it, merger with SingularityNet AGIX. And there we go. Okay, so this is a very fascinating chart where we can see from the C19 times up to where we are today, there's been a ton of progress for sure. My God. You know, if you bought any of that support or the selling climax, you're looking at about 1,000%. So buying this when it's low was the opportunity. Now that it's a little higher though, I suspect there was a ton of FOMO into this surge right here, and I think those people are all probably still hurting. Because this was March a year ago, and this was the peak of December recently. So from the March peak a year ago, down 40% from peak to peak, and from this fractal down to where we are now is 70, and it's had an almost 90% correction from here. That's like an entire bear market wipeout, right? So just being honest, I don't love to see that. And this type of chart move where you can see it just straight line breakout, big correction, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. And the way that it's dropping is so insanely dramatic every time. It's like 80% corrections, right? It's 80% corrections over and over again. So you really need to have the stomach to deal with something like this. It's not a bad project. I'm not judging it based on anything outside of what we're looking at here on these charts. Another thing is you see this trend line that I had drawn on the chart from the bottom of the 2022 bear market all the way up till when it broke below the trend line, effectively 2,600% gains. That would have been a get out sign, because from that moment, it's also had a major correction. Now we're like V-shape recovering out of it, which would be kind of similar to the C19 situation. Let me show you if we were to mimic that fractal, what that would be like. Oh shit. Imagine. Look, dude. Wow, everything is coming back into May 5th. Like, I'm not making this up, dude. I hope people see I'm not making this up. Look at the fractal. Look at the fractal. Same shit into today. Imagine we come down and then this thing goes one more time. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. No, I don't know if we could make that full move though. Sorry, from the selling climate. Anyways, it doesn't matter. This is pretty interesting if it were to correct. But that's a straight line breakout the way that it's breaking out. Very violent. All right, can't spend too much time on fetch, but this also could become, and I'm just seeing it now, a major bull flag. It's ugly though. So there it is. Disregard that. But yeah, to me, from peak, rejection, 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 peak, breakdown back into support, and now we're coming right back up. That could be the play here. And then you would want to consider from there is probably fair. I don't think we're going to come back all the way down to the bottom there. But like, yeah, now you're looking at one other push up. That'd be great. That's like what an alt season could do, by the way. So we could have one more push up. And let me see where this would be with a. We've already hit it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that, but I do see that the 4236 to 4618 is up there around $5. So I do think fetch could make it there. Let me mark that off for everyone. Do we got any 520? Yeah, right where the fucking thing is. Perfect. Okay, there's your decode. Short and sweet. Right there to the 4236. That's your alt season move. I mean, if it goes higher than that, that'd be legendary. That'd be crazy because this thing's already had so many wild moves to the upside throughout its entirety. But crazy chart, absolutely crazy chart. Congrats to anyone who's bought this on a discount. Now we're looking at Onyx Coin. I'm not sure. I looked at this back in January, and it did in fact have a crazy surge to the upside. XCN, fascinating. Now since when we look at what's occurred after this like Christmas tree top, we went on 70 days losing 83%. So that's good for me. That's enough of a correction. It's just I don't like the way I don't like when charts look trade like this. This is insane because you would have never known what the play was here. The pivot would have been very tough to determine unless you know how to use fibs. So what we have is a fib swing high to swing low, and you could see that we came back into the top of the golden pocket. It's fine. And then I have this local fib pull, which is showing me a rejection up at the 618 because again, this thing went up like what? 200% just randomly in a straight line. So yeah, this type of movement is wild. It would be interesting to see what's pushing this way, if it's a leverage or if it's actually spot buys. But we do have this target up here around 13 cents. If this were to have a full move between 13 to 15, and that is crazy to think about. It's another 700%. So anyone who bought this bear market, if you bought any of this bear market, it's looking good. It's up 800% right now. So congrats on that. One of the ugliest and grossest charts I've ever looked at in my entire life, though. Like, we can't deny that, right? So I guess even hideous people could get plastic surgery and look beautiful again. But I don't love stuff like this. It's insanely hard to determine what is going to happen with this. Yeah, it did make a wild move to the upside, but I suspect a majority of the FOMO is probably kicking in up here, considering this was just a couple daily candles that slid through this whole zone. Like literally, we're talking. Okay, we're talking 1 week. 1 week of candles got you to here. And now you're just getting rejected back over here off of a 66% loss. So what I'm assuming is a lot of the dumb money was buying this and the smart money was selling off all of this into here. Who bought all the way back here? Probably for years, you know? Now, doing TA on this is incredibly difficult because there's not much of a chart. It's in price discovery to the downside. It just had an insane straight line breakout that's very, very overbought, and that's proof because it had an 80% correction to follow. And now it's just had another major move real fast. I do think this could turn into an M pattern. So you're looking at something like a return back to this 236 that would actually be pretty healthy. And then from there, you're looking at if it could go one more time, it's another 1000%. So shit, you know, like this is a wild mover. I've heard a little bit about this project from my own community, but I would like to see what the next move is, because if it could get a little more stable, just a little bit more stability, come back to like the 0.12 level, maybe 0.11, which would be another, like, call it 40% correction or so, which is very possible, especially if Bitcoin comes back to like 81 or 82, then I think we have a play. But damn, that's tough to say. 10 cents is tough to, yeah. It's worth it though. If you're venture capital play, it's worth it. Just a little bit goes a long way. You know, this is what I teach everyone. This is what I taught everyone about this project when I first saw the chart. I'm like, you know, with shit like this, when it loses all of its value, like we're talking about from this moment here, 99.99%, like it lost everything. Anytime you buy these extreme things, you're looking at crazy gains in an altcoin. It's just about, will this be the one that pops? You never know. So yeah, it's very fascinating to be a chart analyst and have to look at stuff like this and make calls, because it's insane. It's insane. But yeah, congrats to anyone who has this project and who has benefited from this move and who hasn't sold yet, because this recent pop back up has given you a chance to maybe just de-risk a little bit, you know, not financial advice, but just consider de-risking a little bit. Why not? And then, yeah, I could entertain that move all the way up to 10 to potentially even as high as 15, depending. Let me pull this real quick and turn this on like that. Gives me the 4,236 and 18. Yes, so that would be amazing if it could really get back to the prior all-time high at 17 cents. That would be magic, because anything around this 888 fib, which is what I would like it to retest, yeah, you're looking at 1,000% move again. So it's possible. It's very possible in an altcoin, especially one like this. It doesn't take a lot to move this. All right, guys, let's move on to stacks, and we're going to finish off our podcast here today. All right, same kind of story from the C19 crash times over to where we are today. 700% looks great. It hasn't been dealing with like the bottom of its bear market, as opposed to like even Ethereum looks like it's kind of like getting close to the bottom of its prior bear market. I don't like to see this though. This is really bad to see, how we have a major double top and then we had this lower high rejection at the end of the year, followed by a deeper correction. So I suspect this has been 80%. Yep. It's already 87% losses. We haven't backtested the technical level of the 236. That would have been good to do. Not that we necessarily have to. 382 is good enough. I suspect we could just call it one level at a time. So we have our selling climax, we have some backtests on the 236, and now we have holding the 382. Now we want to see like something like that. Can it get through the 702 level? Because once you have a moment like this, guys, where you go from the 236 straight to the prior top, and then you have this rejection to the bottom of the golden pocket, and then you see how it's trying to hold the 702 right here, and it can't. That's why I would say that's your next big level to keep in mind on stacks. You want to get concretely above that 702. And then obviously push into price discovery, which right now we have one big rejection, this crown distribution top, another big rejection, and then this syringe like blow off top. So lots of sell orders being placed right around that 888 fib. Undeniable, right? So be careful there. And I don't think we have enough juice in the fruit to push this thing into price discovery unless something dramatic comes to this market, right? QE or something. And we're only about 200% away from getting to that level. So I would not personally be investing in this. I don't know if I could entertain the full move up to this $18 range. That's a little bit drastic for me. $10 is very drastic in my opinion. The 5 area is fine. That would be kind of like the similar thing that Bitcoin did back in 2021, where it had a high, and then the second higher high was just barely, right? That could very well be the case. And fuck, from where we are now to $5 is a really good move. Selling at all-time highs too. Oops, let me actually get that level back. I'm gonna leave it like this though for now. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up here because I think generally we're to have a pullback soon, and I'd keep my eyes on this 64, 65 cent level for stacks for those that are interested in DCAing in, or if you don't have, if you don't have much of an investment thesis and you're listening to this right now, I would avoid this. I would not play in this game of high speculation. I would just keep it to the quote unquote blue chips for now. Yeah, even things like Sui are looking like insane, where this pop off the pivot point up to this level, it's just too quick, too fast. So a lot of things that are in the top market cap are really overly reacting to the overly bearish weeks that we've already experienced. So yeah, I'm keeping this all in mind. I do potentially plan to make some moves as we progress through all of this. We'll see. I'm already pretty good with my personal portfolio as I've been accumulating throughout the entire bear market, but I'll of course keep you guys updated every step of the way. So I'm going to wrap this one up here again. This will be the final chance to get in our university. We have enrollment ending very soon. So if you're interested in joining us on this new journey, it will be a 1 year time frame together. So this is a one-time payment. You guys get it for this price here because it's including a discount, which you could find the promo code to in the pinned comment below. And it comes out to less than a cup of coffee a day. So it's an incredible investment in yourself to get this 9-week accelerator program, access to my weekly coaching calls and live Q&As, and our university community, so you could come work together with like-minded people who are helping each other build businesses, become better entrepreneurs, refine or discover their future business, and maybe even find their next business partner in our university community. So I'm really looking forward to our next group coaching call coming up this Thursday, and I'll be catching some of you over there. And I'm wishing you all an amazing rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.